In a world filled with people like Dave Smith, Candy Owens, Tucker Carlson, there are good people still out there like Brandon Tatum. And I like Brandon Tatum. I always have, actually. I have agreed with a lot of the things that Brandon talks about, considering that he is a common sense, good faith individual. And he has principles, he has morals. And I like people like that because they're not going to, change just because someone has said change or has offered a great deal of money. People that have principle are rare nowadays, especially on the internet kind of aspect, commentators, political commentators. And I think someone like Brandon and Charlie, they were common sense, principled men. They weren't going to coattail or bow to pressure or money or whatever else. And I appreciate Brandon's voice. I really do, because there's not many out there like him. And yes, like I said, while I agree with a lot of stuff that Brandon has to say, doesn't mean I agree with everything he has to say. But nevertheless, ladies and gentlemen, in a world where we have people like Dave Smith, be more like Brandon Tatum. Be more like someone like him or Charlie Kirk. I think men like this, we need more of. We are missing many, and I mean many men like Brandon Tatum. Instead, we've got more men like Dave Smith and lots of women like Candace Owens. And if you are following or liking any of the two of them, you need to check your values or your morals just a little bit. That may be harsh for you guys to hear, but maybe you do need to check them, because these people are bad faith. Brandon is not. He's good faith, I believe, wholeheartedly. Consistency. Look at consistency. That all being said, Brandon Tatum goes off on Dave Smith during Piers Morgan. I thought it was great having Dave Smith versus Brandon Tatum, because I knew Brandon Tatum was going to go off on Dave Smith. There's two interactions or two videos that I want to show you. I'll make another video tomorrow about another interaction that was absolutely brilliant. Brandon Tatum pretty much leaving Dave Smith and Piers Morgan speechless about Israel. But there's this moment when they're discussing Nick Fuentes. Now, I don't like Nick Fuentes at all. Doesn't mean that he hasn't said things that I agree with, because he has said some things mostly in response to Candace Owens. That's the only time I'll ever platform him on my show. Like, I'll talk about the fact that he absolutely can't stand Candace Owens because, well, Candace lies. Nick also lies. Nick is also a rabid anti-Semite, but nevertheless, he goes against Candace Owens, and a number of times he has proven all her disingenuous lies to be just that, lies. And I think that's great. So that's the only reason why I've really platformed Nick. I know Patrick Bet-David recently had Nick on his show today. I'm going to be listening to the full podcast tomorrow on my run so I can digest what they're talking about. I think it's quite interesting how Patrick decided to have Nick Fuentes, but don't be surprised if Joe Rogan ends up having him on. There's a reason why Nick is being platformed the way he's being platformed nowadays. But anyway, let's get into this moment where Dave Smith tries to have a go at Brandon Tatum, and listen to Brandon Tatum's response.
To say, because as you mentioned there, you said that your friend was being called anti-Semitic for sharing a clip of what someone else thought. And listen, man, we don't know each other, but literally the only interaction we've ever had is you called me, I think, a devil and one of the worst people in America the other day, also for sharing a clip disgusting. Of somebody else.
No.
Devil.
I'm glad you brought it up, because there's a reason why I said that. It's not that I somehow mentioned something about you just in passing. You shared a post of one of the most disingenuous, evil individuals that I've ever seen online. Nick Fuentes shamed Charlie. Ever since 2017, he would come out, harass, accost Charlie at events. He would harass his wife. him and the gropers would harass my wife because she's white. And this guy said Charlie is a fake Christian and he's disgusting and he should never be able to be on campus without being shouted down. And then he comes out and makes a fake apology. And I felt like you supported that. And then also my art with you, I had never met you before. I disagree with you on Israel, but I respect that you come with your opinions. But when you were on stage at SAS and you chastised those young people and said they can never claim to be pro-life ever again because they support a genocide, I thought that was the most disgusting thing that any adult man could say to young kids who was just seeking the truth and openly listening to a debate between you and another individual. So the only reason I said that is based on those principles alone. I don't know you personally, but I thought that was disgusting. And anybody who support that Nick Fuentes guy who shamed my friend who's now dead, it bothers me to no end.
Dave?
Okay, well, look, I mean, again, I said I give him all the credit in the world for this. And what was this? This was after Charlie Kirk was killed, him saying that he was a good man, that he's praying for his soul, and urging his supporters not to be violent in response to this. And I got to say, you know, I thought, as I think many of us did immediately after Charlie was killed, and immediately after your first reaction of feeling so horrible on a personal level for his family, you realize this is a very dangerous situation. And I got to say, for Nick Fuentes, you know, being who he is, to have him telling his audience, hey, if you respond at all with violence to this, I completely disown you. We need to be Christians about this. We need to be peaceful. We should be praying for him and his family. I give him credit for that. Whatever other beef you got with him, that's between you two. I didn't say I agree with the guy on everything he's ever said. Well, hold on. Let me just respond. I didn't endorse everything the guy's ever said. I said I give him all the credit in the world for this, and then shared the clip of this. Pretty clear what I was saying. And by the way, I didn't chastise the kids at Charlie Kirk's event. I warned them. I warned them that if you're supporting the destruction of a captive, stateless people in Gaza right now, that you will never be able to claim to be pro-life again without being rightfully viewed as the biggest hypocrite in the universe. That's an opinion that I will gladly defend. And I noticed in there, you're not actually taking on that argument. You're just telling me how disgusting I am for having it. So listen, man, I think that if there's one thing Charlie would have wanted, it probably would have been for us to have this conversation without devolving into insults. You can say it's disgusting if you want to. I think there's a pretty strong argument for my point there. I think it's kind of undeniable. There's a real conflict between being pro-life and then also supporting a policy, the price tag of which is tens of thousands of slaughtered babies, children.
A little bit of fairness to Nick. The Groypers were blamed for killing Charlie Kirk. That was a accusation that was spread far and wide by certain individuals. And that's kind of dangerous stuff. Like the internet, it goes after people. Like you go out and accuse without any facts or any evidence, just like Candace did, Max Blumenthal did with blaming or alluding to Israel, you know, and Tucker's done the exact same thing. They've all lied. And Dave, credit to Dave, who initially came out and said, you know, there's no evidence that Israel is involved here at all, but I want people to give me evidence. No one has been able to give him any evidence that he can go, well, yeah, I agree with you here. But the fact that he would even say, I give you Nick Fuentes all the credit in the world for also coming out and going, well, there is no evidence that Israel killed Charlie Kirk. It was a very interesting time. Not going to lie, a very interesting time because I made a video and I gave credit to Dave Smith for actually calling out Candace Owens and all these other people that were lying and trying to push the Israel did it narrative. Like, credit where credit is due, right? Nick, same deal, calling out Candace Owens. And I understand where Brandon Tatum is coming from. Like, to share Nick Fuentes, who was criticizing, ridiculing, and demonizing Charlie Kirk for a long time, his personal friend. I can understand how, and also all the stuff that Dave Smith has said about Israel, I can understand how Brandon was going, you're devilish, man. Like you're a devil and it's disgusting that you would even share. But then again, anti-Jew people seem to coincide with one another. Like they support one another. Dave Smith supports Nick Fuentes by the looks of things. Sure, it was only on this particular matter, but don't be surprised if Dave Smith is ending up supporting Nick Fuentes on other issues as well. Don't be surprised if Nick Fuentes is on Joe Rogan soon. It would not surprise me in the slightest. He was on Patrick Bet David. They all run in similar circles, people. Now, if you want to platform Nick Fuentes personally, not just like what he said or his content, it's your prerogative to host the man and ask him questions. There was an interesting, just a little side note, and I like this. You know, there's Chris Williamson of Modern Wisdom. I listen to his podcast a lot because he's got some very interesting stuff. And he had a conversation with Bonnie Blue and another lady. I'm blanking on her name, but she is against pornography. She's against the, adult industry. And just listening to the two of them have a dialogue back and forth was highly brain stimulating, but it made me look at Bonnie Blue's opinions from a light that I still disagree with her vehemently, but I looked at her from going, well, she's still a human being. She needs help, but who's going to give her that help? Like people, the interviews that I've seen of Bonnie Blue, right? They've been going after her and attacking her in every single interview. This one was different. This one was, let's have a conversation and let's ask questions. Let's get to know Bonnie's mental state. And I think that's important. While I disagree with Bonnie Blue, while I disagree with Nick Fuentes, Dave Smith, it's important that we have these conversations because we are all humans, are we not? And sure, their words are disgusting, but we have a freedom of speech society. And as I've said many times, doesn't mean that you're free from consequences, does it? But it just means that we've got to be very, very careful with who we decide to platform and why. And the thing I liked about the Modern Wisdom thing is he had someone else there, an expert who has written about women's issues, and she was asking questions as well. So it wasn't like Bonnie was there alone spouting her nonsense and saying that it's okay because she believes that it's okay. And while I'm against everything that Bonnie Blue stands for, I saw it as a good thing for us to be listening to the other side, not living in like this echo chamber. And that's what I'm talking about with this whole instance. Sure, Brandon Tatum is right, and I can understand where he's coming from as well. It's important for us as Christians to make stands and know what we believe and why we believe it, and actually be able to explain why we believe it, like Brandon does so often. And when it comes to the internet, personal opinions, all that stuff, if you disagree with someone, say you disagree with them and explain why, which is what I do all the time on this show, is it not? And I explain myself. Here is what this person said. Here is what this person has done. Here is why it's wrong, and I can prove it for you all the time. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this show. Now, when it comes to who's right, who's wrong, it's up for everyone's interpretation, isn't it? Like, not everyone's going to agree with me. And they're going, Jay, why in the world are you talking about, and having a side note with the whole Bonnie Blue stuff, we're talking about Brandon Tatum. It's kind of a similar element is what I'm trying to draw for you all. Very similar. Dave Smith, disagree with. Nick Fuentes, disagree with vehemently. It's your choice to platform them. I choose not to have like a personal conversation with Nick or Dave. That's my choice. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to use their content or an interview they've been on and call them out. And if they do say something right that I agree with, I will give them credit. I didn't hear anything except for the amount of hate that Bonnie receives from people and death threats, etc., online, that was about it. That I was like, well, you shouldn't be sending people death threats. Like, doesn't matter what they do, doesn't mean that they should be receiving death threats. It's disgusting. It's vile. But everything else that she was saying, I'm going, nah, disagree with entirely. I agree with Louise Perry. That's her name, Louise Perry. She's fantastic. So I was more on Louise Perry's side, just as much as I'm on Brandon's side because of their values and their morals. They align with mine. So anyway, I think I'm getting like long-winded tangent here trying to explain myself. But nevertheless, I think Brandon was spot on with this. And I think it's important for us as Christians or just as people to know what we believe in and why we believe it and be able to explain it, okay? And be able to call things to attention and call things out when we need to. Anyway, that's enough from me, but you guys take care, be blessed, and I'll see you all in the next video.